Behold! A kingdom! Thriving. Merchants, farmers, maidens, small kids with grudges to settle, and a rather efficient legion of knights, all of them coming together to form a prosperous kingdom. But let's pause right there, shall we? Because it wasn't always like this. This kingdom used to literally be a dump. People would ask each other simple things like, hey, you wouldn't happen to know where I could get a small loaf of bread or something to eat, right? Or maybe even a decent bath? To which the response was always something along the lines of, nah man, I'm like a peasant or something. Everyone in this kingdom is a peasant.
Poverty!
And they were right. The entire kingdom was in a state of crisis, and as is the case with most oppressions bestowed on innocent townsfolk, the cause was the government. Or in this case, a king. You see, this particular king had developed a couple of rather nasty habits, a result of his excessive grief over the loss of his beloved. Every good kingdom needs a queen, which Corpulencia... I never mentioned the name, did I? Yes, the kingdom was known as Corpulencia. Anyway, every good kingdom needs a queen, which Corpulencia did have, but she died. Suddenly, and rather unexpectedly. To call it tragic would be an understatement. The king was already unstable, but this pushed him off the brink of his sanity. His moral spiral plunged into the deep, dark depths of dark deepness, and he tried to find ways to cope with this loss, none of which worked. He took to terrorizing the townsfolk with pitchforks, overthrowing the delicate garden tables of the children. He hoarded all the food he could and stashed it away in his castle. And that is how the kingdom fell. It would be awful if I ended this story here, right? With no glimpse of light in the near-distant future, and everyone wallowing in self-pity and hatred for their so-called king. Even the knights were over it. Their armor needed repairs, their horses had long since packed their bags, and they straight up were just not having a good time. And the peasants? Sheesh! Their clothes hadn't been washed in weeks! Which is technically, I guess, their own fault, because the river was literally just like a short jog away, but they blamed it on the king! So how would this drastic, dire, aesthetically displeasing situation all get better, you wonder? The answer came from across the bridge. A beautiful, albeit naive, young duchess had been traveling in search of a kingdom to settle down in, and so far had found absolutely zero. This would be a good time to point out that Corpulencia was quite an isolated kingdom. Its founders weren't very fond of social interaction, so they picked a spot that was literally smack dab in the middle of nowhere. Geography lesson over. The Duchess, being weary of traveling, saw the kingdom in the distance, and her spirits lifted. Finally, a speck of civilization, a glimmer of hope, a pile of garbage, actually. If she hadn't already come so far, she would have turned around right then and there. But she was determined to see it through, and if possible, make it her home. About this same time, one of the king's knights, his closest friend in fact, had been formulating a plan to get the king back into shape. He had subtly convinced the king to include him on his daily picnics, and, when the king wasn't looking, he would smuggle away some of the food to the people. The king was, for the most part, oblivious, except for like one time when the knight stole pizza but not the pizza box, and the king was furious upon finding it empty. After such a day, the king and his knight were returning to the kingdom, and he saw the duchess amongst the townsfolk. The king was all like, "Who's that? She's gorgeous!" And the knight was like, "She's probably a foreign princess looking for a home." And the king guy went all, "Wait a second! She's not gonna wanna stay here. The place is a dump." So the knight went, "Yeah, so it'd probably be a good idea to clean some stuff up or something?" But the king didn't listen. He was all like, "Dude, that cleaning stuff requires, like, manual labor or something. And I can't do that." The knight saw an opportunity here, and being a man of action, grabbed it by the neck and didn't let it escape. He was all like, "Okay, so we want this lady person to stick around, yeah?" And the king was like, "Duh." So the knight went all like, "Then we've got to make some improvements. You especially." The king was like, "Hurtful, dude." But the knight went, "If you want a good kingdom, you have to be a good king. You can't rule if you're always going on picnics and completely forgetting about your royal duties, man. Get real." So the king sat down and was like, "Alright, so if we make the kingdom great again, she'll stick around. Simple." And the knight was like, "Finally!" to himself, and then told the king, "Yeah, bro, we're gonna get this mess of spaghetti, like, untangled or something, and it starts here." So the knight was able to convince the king to start working out. The peasants saw this and were all like, "Dude, look at this! The king's trying to get ripped!" But most of them were like, "Whatever, I doubt it'll last." And the duchess was all, "That's your king? Not impressed." So the merchants were like, "Yeah, he's been like super sad for a while. The kingdom wasn't always like garbage when his queen was still alive. His daily calorie intake is way too big." And then one peasant in the back went like, "Maybe everything's gonna get better!" And the thought of not living in garbage was cause for celebration. Now, who is this handsome fellow, you might ask? The answer is nobody. He just happened to stumble across Corpulencia during the time of our story, and I had to keep him in here for historical accuracy. Just ignore him if you can. The Duchess had been helping the townsfolk get the kingdom back on its feet. She found she liked the work, and her positivity was quite contagious, causing the townsfolk to withstand even the worst of situations with a smile. And the king, oh boy, was he subjected to rigorous training. The knight was unrelenting, helping the king do multiple sets of push-ups a day, and motivating him to get a decent run in every now and then. All the while, the king was slowly coming to terms with the loss of his queen, and realizing that keeping the Duchess as a part of Corpulencia was crucial to maintaining balance amongst the peoples. Time passed. The king eventually returned to his original physique, and as such was more confident in speaking to the Duchess about the probability of her stay. So one fine day after a workout, he decided to pay her a visit, but wasn't sure how to approach. He asked the opinion of several members of the town, who tried their best to come up with a solution to break the ice. The maidens of the town suggested bringing flowers, lots of them, also singing. The farmer suggested he gift the Duchess with a goat. The king politely refused. The executioner suggested force. Lastly, the knight just went like, "Get over it, man!" and hauled him over to the Duchess. The king was like, "Hi, I'm the king." And the Duchess was very polite and said, "Hello." It was a little awkward. The townsfolk were watching in the distance, and the knights were in the trees, eavesdropping. Everyone knew that what was said here would decide the fate of Corpulencia. The king eventually went like, "So, I kinda need someone like you to stick around here. The townsfolk really like you." And the Duchess went like, "Hey, that's what I was thinking. Your kingdom has certainly gotten really nice." So the king was like, "Want to stay?" And the Duchess went, "Sure. Cue the celebration!" And there you have it. A lovely story, if I do say so myself. Everyone was having a wonderful time, except for this guy. He had asked the Duchess to dance or something, all like, "Hey there, I'm a prince, do you want to dance?" But the Duchess was all like, what? No, you're like really annoying. And he was like, "Fiddlesticks," and ended up leaving the kingdom shortly after. But there you have it. The story of the King of Corpulencia and how the actions of like 2 people saved his civilization from plunging into madness. Thanks for bearing with me, I'll be going now. Oh, and by the way, that's the end! If any of you guys want to, now would probably be a good time to start rolling the credits.